Irashaimase, and welcome once again to Tinker Tailor Solder Fry, the Let's Try program here on the mighty Loading Ready Run Video Entertainment Network. My name is Ian Horner. I'll be your navigator through today's proceedings, where we will be making Mille-Feuille. My French is terrible, so I've been literally going off of the helpful Japanese version, Mille-Feuille. It's much easier when you say it in katakana that way. But you know what else is easy? Supporting this channel, because we have so many ways of doing so, such as patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. That's where you can sign up and get it monthly extracted directly from your bank account or credit card or money holding system of your choice that is compatible with them. But of course, we've also got store.loadingreadyrun.com. And of course, you can also check out our panoply of YouTube channels where you can support us there as well. But yeah, today is it's a Nabe pot with a French twist, or at least a French name. What we're going to be doing is taking this chonker of a Napa cabbage, and making it all look pretty inside of a pot, boiling it up, and just having a delicious pork belly and cabbage. Well, it's a Nabe pot. It's a pot you stick on your stove and you let it simmer. And always better to eat those around the table on a burner, getting together, being friends and family, and just sharing a meal. But this is just me, and of course over in the Crystal Ghana we got Paul on the ones and twos.
Hello.
And we're gonna make something up for you here today.
So is this a French version of a Japanese dish, or a Japanese version of a French dish?
That's a very good question. One that I was not prepared for, and because I often do just skip all of this story that happens before recipe for copyright reasons before going directly to the recipe. But I would guess that this is, well, I learned something out in the kitchen while we were talking about it beforehand. Cameron was asking me to explain what the heck I was doing tonight, and he said, "Oh, well, that sounds delicious." Unfortunately, not something we can really adapt to a vegetarian version, given the sheer amount of fish dashi and especially pork belly that's going to be going in there. But the pastry version is also extant. Some of you may know them under the name Napoleons, that same word, Mille-Feuille. And this layer of custard and custard pastry and sugar topping, all incredibly delicious and a great way to ruin your full dinner to begin with. So my guess is that this is in fact a French dish that has been, if not adapted, completely transformed by the Japanese for this.
Cool.
Yeah. So what we're going to be doing, just to lay it out there beforehand, and I'll talk about it while I'm unwrapping the Napa here. Unwrap the Napa. Is we're going to take this big old chonker, we're going to slice it into quarters, and then we're going to slice up some pork belly and interleave the leaves with pork belly one over another until we've got kind of a big stacked sandwich. Then we're going to take the cabbage, the layered pieces of cabbage, and slice them up into even pieces and arrange them into a pot with the sliced side up, such that you can see the layers as they go through, and it just comes out looking like a lot more work than it actually is. And that's kind of why I wanted to share this with you, in addition to it being extremely easy to do. On top of that, I'll let you know the recipe we're going off of today is once again from justoncookbook.com on the internet. If you're watching this later on, you'll be able to find a link in the underneath section and follow along that way. So let's start with the cabbage. Well, actually, let's start at the beginning, which is, as usual, a very nice place to start, what you're going to need to gather for your ingredients here. And you're going to want 1 head of Napa cabbage. Probably you want to get around 4 pounds or 1.8 kilograms.
It's a lot of cabbage.
Yeah, it's a hefty cabbage. And then you're going to pair that with about 1.5 pounds of sliced pork. I may have gone over just a bit, but it'll be fine. No one's ever going to complain about not enough pork.
Now, Napa cabbage is different from just like a regular head of cabbage, that sort of more round head of cabbage that we have.
Yes, I mean
that we normally would have around here.
Yeah, it's if you're looking for Napa cabbage, you're going to want to head on over to the Asian section of your grocery store, or an Asian grocery store if you have one in your area, for even better. But it's less hard and tough, fibrous. It's closer to what you'd imagine a bok choy would be if it was cabbage form style at the top rather than the spreading of the leaves open.
Oh, okay.
It's a much more mild flavor, but you still get that wrinkliness of a Savoy cabbage without the added fiber. Still lots of fiber, but not as much as you'd get with a normal cabbage. And a normal cabbage would require a lot more time to boil down than this would. Yeah, Nabe, as Raven in the chat points out, is from the Edo period, but this particular layering technique is pretty modern. Most nabes, or literally, when you say nabe, you're literally talking about the don nabe, which is the pot that you use, an earthenware pot that's usually fired over a fire of some sort, one of those portable gas stoves, often the case, and you'll arrange your ingredients in there. Some tofu, bok choys, various other leafy greens, lots of mushrooms, different types, and let it sort of come cook at the table and bring together that all the flavors into something that's right there for you. Then you had noodles in the end, and it's all it's a big fun deal. And
So this would be like similar to like a hot pot.
yes, yeah, hot pot is probably the best localized word for that.
The translation. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that makes certain people squirm, but
But do note that often Japanese nabe or Japanese hot pots are usually on the savory to sweet side of things when you're getting into your sukiyakis, which is where you take those thin strips of beef and just cook them by dipping them into that hot boiling nabe sauce.
right.
That's more of a sweet one. Others are flavored with miso, or just flavored with the natural flavors of the mushrooms. Maybe you'll often add a lot of dashi to it as well to make the broth a little bit more flavorful. And this one also is definitely on that savory side of things. We'll be adding dashi stock to it, which is the fish-based stock. That's the base of basically every Japanese dish that has stock in it. And that will mix with the flavor, the light flavor of this cabbage, and the sweet flavor of the pork. And of course, you've got ginger in there too. But we'll get to that in a second here. So you got the Napa cabbage. You've got the sliced pork belly of that. You're also going to need a knob of ginger, about they suggest an inch long or 2.5 centimeters. I got a bit more. We're going to make 8 slices out of that, which we're then going to insert along with strategically in the pot, along with the other sliced bits. You're going to need 5 cups of dashi, which I have measured out the water over here for, and we'll weigh out the powder that we need in just a few minutes. You're going to need some sake. This is just what I had available. You use whatever type of sake you want, as fancy as you want. It's been a while since I've had this one, so we'll taste it. But I think it got relegated to cooking sake for a reason.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is cooking sake a lot different than, like, I know cooking wine is just will just be sort of a lower, because you're not gonna really taste it too much in the final version.
You do actually need to watch out for that, because a lot of the cooking wines, specifically Chinese cooking wines and to a lesser extent Japanese cooking wines, are often heavily salted as a method of keeping them from being just drunk by people who are looking to drink whatever they can get.
Oh,
and so that not only does that add a lot of salt to the flavor that's unnecessary, but it messes up the flavor of the whole dish due to that extra salt.
Yeah, ironic to put salt in it to stop people wanting to drink it, but then that also makes it not as good for the purpose that you're trying to sell it for. Doesn't really help too much.
Yeah, often what you'll use the wine for, especially in Chinese or in Japanese cooking, is to lower the smell of meats. So you'll often, it's not even quite a marination because it's usually just about 10 to 15 minutes in a couple splashes of sake, but you'll do that to fish to remove the smell as the cooking happens. You'll do that to pork for the same reason, and that's kind of what this is here to do, is to tone down the meaty aromas and get it all a little bit more rounded together.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we've got the sake. We've got 1 tablespoon of soy sauce, which is all we'll need. A half teaspoon of kosher salt. I'm so glad the kosher salt shortage is over for me. That was a weird couple of months with some Himalayan pink sea salt that doesn't work quite right, and also the pinkness makes for a rather odd brown color when it touches moisture. So it looks like your food's got all little brown spots over it. It's no good. Was that a shortage that was just specific to you, or was that actually like a Victoria kosher salt shortage? I feel like it was probably just specific to me and the 2 or 3 stores I usually go to get kosher salt. But our bulk shop has been out of kosher salt since at least last year and has not restocked on it yet. So.
Oh no.
Yeah. You got to go with the boxed stuff, but at least, hey, that way I know that it's from Ontario rather than imported from somewhere else in the world.
What is a normal salt that stops it from being kosher?
I think is
it the iodine?
I think it actually has to do with the process with which it's made rather than anything else. Because I think it does still have iodine in it, though now you've got me questioning that too.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's how they butcher it. Yeah.
If you find the salt in the road, you must kill the salt first. But that's it. Those are the ingredients you need for this dish. It's incredibly simple, and I might as well just stop with well, not stop the yapping completely, but augment the yapping with some actual cooking here, shall we?
All right.
Okay, so we're going to start by washing our cabbage, because you should always wash your produce. It's always good. So we're going to take a few leaves just off the outside. You can find, if you're looking for them, relatively clean-looking cabbages on the outside. That doesn't necessarily mean that there's not something on the inside that you're going to want to deal with. But this looks like a pretty healthy cabbage here. So we'll set these off to the side because we might need them later on. One other thing I should mention that you're going to want for this dish is ponzu. This is the brand that I have this is the brand that I bought when I didn't realize I had another half bottle in my fridge at home. It lasts quite a while due to its composition with soy sauce, a lot of salt, a lot of vinegar and such. You can make your own, but I'm not going to, because of a very important reason. It takes over a day for the ponzu sauce to come together. You want to put it together with your ingredients. You get some good lemons in there, get some yuzu if you can, but it does take a bunch of boiling, and then you want it to cool and have the flavors come together at least overnight, if not over a couple of days. So ponzu.
When I saw that on the table, I thought that was just a type of soy sauce, but
it's very soy sauce heavy, but it is seasoned with a number of additives to make it a lot more sour than a soy sauce would be on its own. So we've got our Napa cabbage. We should wash it off. Let's put the plastic to the side here. And here's the first trick of this particular recipe that I found quite interesting. Don't knock off the base of your cabbage just yet. You're going to want to, that's probably the right angle actually. what we're going to do here is, choose an area where you think you're going to hit the fewest leaves. It really doesn't matter. What matters is that you're going to cut 2/3 of the way through the cabbage straight down. Just cut it in half. In and down. And then you're going to take the other side and do likewise. About 2/3 down. Get in. Finish the cut. And the reason for that is that you can then pull apart the two halves, and not only does ripping the cabbage give a nicer edge to it, but it also preserves the edge of the leaves in a way that you might not be able to get by just cutting it all the way through. And we want as many of these leaves to be together as possible. So we're just going to set these in some water here that I have prepared earlier, and let those just soak, and any of the impurities or little friends inside can make their way out as we move forward and deal with the pork. All right, that was fun. Actually, before we deal with the pork, let's peel some ginger while the knife is still clean enough to do so.
This is one of those things where you really want to get the real ginger, not just ginger powder or whatever.
Absolutely. This is most Asian cooking I've found. You want the actual ginger because it's getting cooked up in the oil as part of the pre-cook process. Not so in this one, but this having the fresh ginger itself is a completely different flavor from powdered stuff, and it's rather than something that's going to be eaten, it's something that you can then remove after the fact, after it's essentially steeped all of its goodness out into the stew. Or you can just chomp down on it if you find it in your bowl. It's quite lovely on its own.
Right, because at that point it's not the strong ginger flavor has already sort of steeped out of it.
Exactly, and it'll just be a little bit of depending on how you cut it and how thick it is, it will you might be able to bite through it all the way, but not always the case. I'm going to start by trimming the end off my ginger here, and let's just clean up that little bit of a cut there. Now, you could use your vegetable peeler to peel your ginger, and that is a technique. But what happens is you end up bringing a lot of the ginger with you when you peel it that way, and it doesn't need to be that clean of a cut to get the flavor out. Though you do want the skin off, especially if you intend to nibble on them a little bit later, because they get pretty fibrous. I like to use any sort of a flat-edged spoon-like object, and so we're just going to scrape it off there, and that makes for
it's very, very thin. So you're basically just abrading it off. You're not actually cutting it.
Exactly, and it just comes off with the gentlest of pressure there. And so that's how I like to peel my ginger.
To find all in the audience goes, no spoon tech? Oh, there it is. Yeah, there we go.
You can do it however you like, but there's more than one way to skin a ginger. Don't quote me on that.
Maybe double check that one.
Check with your local ginger. All right, so there's our ginger. Let's just leave it there. It's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to lose any flavor just by being out like that for now. Right, I did prepare a wiping station. Great. And that can just go wherever you compost. Like right there for now. Okay, let's wipe that off.
can make really nice just ginger tea, like literally just ginger root peeled and boiled, and simmered in water for an extended period of time. Makes a very nice tea.
It really does. I experimented with that actually just a couple of weeks ago, and that was where I decided finally that, yes, the skin does need to come off. Otherwise, the skin adds some bitter and off flavors to the boiling process. But I also like to, I was making, I guess, more of a concentrate than I wanted to use to mix with the carbonated water that I'm addicted to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sort of a ginger beer thing.
The closest thing to a ginger beer you can get on a short term. I did a number of years ago try actually making brewed ginger beer, and it was quite nice, but it was a lot of effort getting the juice out of the ginger. I have, in the meantime, discovered some interesting hacks about doing that to make it a lot easier. Okay, that sake is not bad. All right, let's get out our pork. Now, this is where you might end up with not some issues, but some questions when you're out and about shopping for this. Pork belly is what you're looking for. Specifically pork belly. You do not want bacon for this dish. The recipe itself also mentions this, but when you're dealing with bacon, while it is pork belly, it's cured, so you're getting a lot of extra salts and preserved salts in there as well, which will be too much for the cabbage to handle. Though we are going to be adding some salt to the recipe, you may have already noticed if you're following along on the web.
Back bacon is also something different, right?
Yes. Similar thing, but it's the bacon is the word you need to watch out for, because that's where you've got the additives in there. The pork belly itself can be fresh or frozen. It doesn't matter. In fact, if you're slicing it, it might be even advisable, I should have done that actually, to put the pork in the freezer for about 15 minutes before, or let it thaw out just to your preferred cutting, however makes it easiest. The other thing that that the recipe mentions that I don't do, or at least haven't done in the past, is this pork belly, you'll see here, has the skin on the back of it, or the rind, and they suggest removing that, but I found it still stayed tender throughout the cooking process, and made it a little bit more flavorful. I think actually you get a little bit more gelatin out of things when you're slowly cooking the skin that way, and so that adds to the richness of the broth. Question is, how do we want to slice this? And I think so here's the thing to keep in mind. We're going to be layering these bits inside the cabbage, and the cabbage itself looks to be about yay long, so probably about the length of, you'd think it would be the length of the far side here, but we're going to end up, once we've layered things in, cutting the bottom end of these cabbage pieces off to get rid of that hard end rind. So we'll probably want to cut on this direction, and then we can, as I have in the past when I've made this recipe, just double layer the bacon, not bacon, pork belly in some of the places. So before my hand gets contaminated, I'm going to take one more sip of the cola here.
Is there does pork belly have like a grain to it, or like do you particularly want to cut it like on an angle or on the side? Does it matter?
Yeah, it doesn't appear to be an issue. The strings seem to be going in the same direction, or the fibers. So we could, I think, Yeah, the cross cut appears to be what we're going to be wanting here because that will get the best strata of the inner meat, the fat, and then this outer layer of meat here as well. And then that'll be the tenderest cut of pork fat.
My main interaction with pork belly is the extremely delicious sweet and sour pork belly from a local restaurant or local takeout place that I enjoy on many occasion. Sweet and sour pork belly with deep fried green beans with it and stuff.
Yes.
It's very, very good.
So this is what my first cut looks like, and I think this is a bit thicker than what we'd like. You're going to want to try and cut this as thin as possible because that's how the deliciousness works. Where is a good place to put these while I'm looking here?
So it will. You don't really care too much about it, like maintaining its integrity in the pot. You know, if you make it too thin.
Yeah, because it's going to be trapped between these layers of cabbage anyway while it's cooking.
I guess this might be a reason to have it sort of slightly frozen.
This is definitely that reason, but we can fake it. There we go. So that's a little bit more what we're looking for here in terms of the thinness. Somewhere between that and the massive chonkers that I've put together already.
So you're sort of cutting your own bacon, but it just doesn't have the sort of additional preservatives and the
exactly
stuff that bacon has.
Yeah, and the salt especially. So this is going to be most of what I'm going to be doing here for a bit, but
also, and I mean, I don't know if it's because of the preservedness in it or what, but sort of slow cooked or sort of boiled bacon actually sounds kind of nasty.
It does sound that. Doesn't sound good, does it?
I mean, I don't know if it actually is any different than this, but somehow it feels bad.
That's partially where the ponzu comes into play in the end. So what we're making here essentially is, you're right, we are boiling bacon with cabbage, which sounds like it should be the ultimate British dish, doesn't it? But what happens is you end up getting all of the fat from the bacon, well, not all of it, but a good amount of it rendering out and interacting with the broth. That's where I was talking about that becoming such a rich broth, because there are going to be a lot of fat globules swimming around in it, which is what you get out of a good ramen anyway. So that's nothing to be worried about. So you get the slight salt of slight salt from some salt. You get the cabbage flavor. You get that melding with the bacon flavor, with the broth and that salty dashi. And then you pair that against the sour citrusness of the ponzu sauce, and that's where all the flavor really comes together.
Would you call it a ponzu scheme?
I think the making of ponzu is a ponzu scheme of itself, especially when store-bought is available. Okay, there we go. This is starting to come together a little bit easier now. Just need to slice through that skinny rind on the bottom. And always, as always, watch the fingies. But yeah, now having done this
considering, the kitchen here in the office, that might not be the sharpest knife in the world.
Oh
either.
no, this is a knife I brought from home.
Oh, is it? Okay,
sharpened
good.
Specifically for today.
I was going to say, yeah, we have a lot of knives here in the office, but I cannot speak to the quality of any of them.
Yeah, they are, I can, and they are not great. perhaps it might. Well, I think we already did a episode on knife sharpening a number of years ago.
Oh, I remember that with Beige.
Yes. It's not like I need to bring in my knife sharpening and do some content every time that needs to happen. All right. Yeah, this is turning out just fine. It's always a bit of a crapshoot, though, and this is a bit of a peek behind the curtain as to what side to set up the supplementary camera for us. Today we've got one on my left. Unfortunately, I'm choosing to cut in such a way that the cut's happening on the right-hand side.
It's okay. Well, I mean, we've got this angle too, so we're good.
Good. Okay. Might need to do a bit of trimming here just to make this easier on myself. Up at the top end. Just yeah, we can just shove that in somewhere. All right. Oop, too greedy. And by the greed was in terms of trying to get a thin slice.
Now, and we're not going to be like frying this off or anything before we go into it, right?
Nope.
This is just
This goes straight into the cabbage. So we're probably going to be working with contaminated cutting boards for a good remainder of the show here. But that's all right. Everything is touching the bacon anyway. All right. Cut you down.
hashtag touch the bacon.
Put that on a t-shirt, I think. With the hashtag, of course. You have to touch the bacon to eat the bacon. Unless, of course, you're somehow able to inhale a piece of bacon without it touching your throat in any way.
I mean, there have been times.
Yeah, ever since broadening out into more Chinese cooking, I've been getting a lot more pork belly in my life, which probably not good for my own belly.
Ah. Do you need more pork belly in your life?
The answer may surprise you. One of my other, as we head into spring and therefore grilling season, one of my other favorites is to cube up some pork belly and then marinate it with some gochujang and other delicious things to make some skewers that grill up very nicely.
I guess pork belly is it's like one of those interesting foods or sort of ingredients that historically was sort of a commoner kind of food, right?
Mm-hmm.
It would be not the good cut of the pig.
Mm-hmm.
It would be this something that you could afford and you could get, and so but then of course people came up with all sorts of incredibly delicious ways of serving it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turned out to be like actually people are now people want the pork belly.
I think part of the other thing is the way that the various cultures treat, and through time as well, treat different parts of the meat. Traditionally, I think one of the reasons that pork belly is most associated with bacon in North America is because of its fat and its ability to be cured into bacon. It easily preserves
Right, of course.
And so, that's where most of our, or a lot of our food comes from in terms of our recipes is, how do I save this food that I have now for when it becomes very cold and dark later?
The, yeah. I love, there's a guy who does a wonderful, like, historical cooking channel on, about especially sort of cooking in, like, especially like American cooking in like the 1800s and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And they talk a lot about that different strange or different ways that they use to preserve. Townsend's. That's it. Townsend's.
Yes.
They all sorts of interesting ways because they're preserving food. That they just recently did a thing on dehydrated soup, or like solid soup,
Mm-hmm.
which it's basically like a way more complicated bouillon cube. It's like you basically take meat and cook it, and make a boil it for a really, really long time, get all the sort of tasty nutrients out of the beef, out of the meat, out of possibly bad cuts of meat or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and then just take it and you just cook it and cook it and cook it and cook it down until you're basically left, and then you sort of dehydrate it, and you basically are left with like a puck
Of soup stock, essentially.
of soup, yeah, and then which can then be sort of rehydrated when it's needed.
I think I'm going to try and get one more slice this in half, and that's about as ambitious as I'm going to get with this particular cut. Yeah, this is going to be a tough one. But one thing I wanted to mention, though, was also the attitude that Western palates have towards fat, which is often seen as undesirable in a food. We'll aggressively trim our steaks of as much fat as possible before we put them on the grill or whatnot. It feels like the only place where you're allowed to have this kind of fat showing is in the bacon, because that's traditionally where you'd see it, because it's part of the curing process.
Of course, that's the secret of any, like, if you go to a restaurant and get food or whatever, right? It's always
Exactly.
the secret is there's way more fat in it than you expect.
More fat, more salt, all the good things. And so it doesn't feel like, especially when it comes to specifically pork belly, that at least the Chinese palate and the Japanese palate, and to an extent that I understand it, the Korean palate doesn't seem to quite have that association with the pork fat being a bad thing.
I feel like I've seen, that sort of pork belly that you had at the beginning. I've seen things of the sort of master chefs and at fancy restaurants and stuff. They'll take like a steak or something, and then just like wrap the entire thing in the pork belly.
Yep.
And just like tie it all up, and then like roast that, and like.
Well, actually, now that I think about it, for the last anniversary stream that we had, or the subathon, one of the things I made there was a pancetta, which was just a seasoned pork belly that had been heavily rubbed down, sous vide for 36 hours, and then deep fried.
That was ridiculously delicious.
It disappeared to like nobody's business. Okay, come on. Don't touch them with your fingers. And then let's get the other side off here as well. A good solid couple weeks of decaling it at home on one of my personal model projects has made me a little bit more adept at getting these gloves off without fully contaminating everything.
I didn't realize gloves were an important part of deckling.
I didn't either until just recently. And finger oils are absolutely the devil's playground when it comes to anything model-based. But when you use gloves like this, you can touch the decals, which is important for ease of positioning. So let's get that there. There we go. No touchy the bad part. Okay, let's get the knife handle, which is safe out of there, and let's just give that a good little wipe down as well. Okay, we're going to start now. Let's start by drying off some of this cabbage.
So, I mean, I guess that's basically it for preparation, eh? Just chop up the cabbage, chop up the meat, and then...
Yep, you'll add a few other things, like your dashi, but we'll get to that in a second as well. All right. Shake out some water there. Don't look too much at the contents of the water. I'm just using clean towels because we don't have a sink to drain things in here. So this should work. They are all clean towels, I guarantee you.
I saw somebody in the chat saying that they really like cooking Tinker Tailor solder fry streams because of how unsuited for cooking Studio C is.
Yes.
But
it's where we've got all the good cameras and lights.
You don't need a whole fancy. This is not like a fancy kitchen kind of cooking show.
It does also, in a very real way, limit the what kinds of things we can cook here.
It's true
in the studio. But so far, I can't complain too much.
But I mean, the other way of looking at it is these are recipes that one could cook, in a dorm room with a hot plate or whatever, right?
Exactly. All right, I'm going to step aside for 10 seconds. You know what? Actually, no. We'll drain that after the fact. These need to take a couple seconds to release some of their water too. So let's get the dashi going and get our other friends into the pot because they're going to need to be in there. So. For dashi, I have calculated out that we want 4 grams per 600 milliliters. We have 1,000 milliliters because we need 5 cups of water, so that's actually going to be 1,250. So, 1,250. Let's just do 8 grams then of dashi. That seems like a appropriate amount. 8 grams and change? Yeah. I just have to see the number on the scale. I use not pre-ground, but dashi powder. It's still the same thing. It's the fish cooked down to a stock and then powdered in granular form. And if it's good enough for for my Japanese obasans, it's good enough for me. 8 grams of dashi.
It is sort of essentially like a fish bouillon.
Yeah. It's you could make it a number of other ways. You can buy the tiny fish in tea bags essentially, and steep it in the hot water. You can buy the fish flakes as flakes, the kind of stuff you see on top of okonomiyaki, and you can put it in there and strain it yourself. You can even get a big block of dashi, dehydrated to the point where it's like wood, and shave the flakes yourself. This is fine.
It seems like those are also all the different ways that you can actually buy tea. It's interesting. It's like the same.
Just fish tea.
Is dashi a particular fish, or is it just fish?
Yes, it is. Now I'm blanking on which one it is, but I think it might be the skipjack tuna. But
I'm assuming it's sort of a handy fish that isn't much good for anything else. It's sort of
it's a fish with a particular taste, I think, is the key. And that taste is less fishy than it is salty. But yeah, it's a specific one. You can make dashi stock with other things. You can also make it with kombu, seaweed, and big thick pieces of seaweed with the white stuff all over it, which you absolutely should not rinse off because it's part of the flavor. But yeah, some dashis are made with sardines. Raven points out. I know that a lot of Korean dishes like to use the sardines in the bag for those. But like I said, this makes dashi just as good as any other methods for me. I'm not trying to impress anyone, so it works out well. We should add the other liquid ingredients too. So we're going to need, where did I put my phone? Over here. All right, we are going to need 2 tablespoons of sake. And we'll add this to the soup once we get it boiling. Do that. 1 tablespoon of the soy sauce, which I think is about all I have left in this container right now. Oh, wow, we threaded that needle.
perfect.
Okay, and of course a 1/4 teaspoon of the salt. I'm going to add that in with the dashi here, just because it's on the dry team.
Yeah, a few folks talking about that. Where you said you got this recipe, the justonecookbook.com, is a good resource for other recipes as well.
They're probably my favorite source for. If it weren't for how much I love another Japanese food blogger, they would be my #1. But unfortunately, Just Hungry, the creator of Just Bento from back in the Web 2.0 days, has been having health problems recently and hasn't been able to update their site as much as possible. But yeah, Just One Cookbook's real good in terms of good Japanese recipes. And we're going to skip the green onion scallion for the dipping sauce because it's not really necessary. And also I forgot the onion.
All good Japanese cookbooks start with just.
Yes. Yeah, poor Maki Ito, Raven. That's the Just One, or not Just One Cookbook, Just Hungry is their handle online. But we are now to the point where we are ready to start assembling our cabbage and pork stacks. But before we do that, I think this sounds like a good time for us to take a short break. So we're going to get up, stretch our legs, swap our fluids, and come back with more Mille-Feuille here on Tinker Tailor Soldier Fry. Don't go all the way away. Welcome back to Tinker Tailor Soldier Fry, where we're making a hot pot, a nabe, a Mille-Feuille, a pork cabbage stack, and it's gonna be delicious. It's gonna look fantastic, and we're gonna make it. We've chopped up our pork into relatively thin slices. We have separated out our cabbage into the sections that it's going to be, and now it's time to assemble. So. Let's get started. Let's get our gloves back on here for maximum pork protection. Ooh. Really starting to smell that. Smell that pork. Come on, get out. Or wait, is that the pork that I'm smelling or a combination of the bonito and... Oh yeah, it's you guys. The pork is fine. this other glove bag on. Okay, and we've also managed to clean out our Rubbermaid bin. We'll use that to hold the completed pork stacks in when they're ready. So here comes the magic. Let's take a piece of cabbage, and then let's start lifting some leaves, shall we? Find a good section here where that's going to come apart. And I think that's going to be our closest one there. So let's just take a little slice of pork and just jam it in there.
Oh. You don't.
Like
We're not stacking in terms of like cutting it all up and layering it.
No, that would be a fool's errand, I believe is the technical term.
Ah, I always thought this would be sort of like a lasagna or something where you're sort of piling it up. Oh, interesting.
See, you just grab the next layer or the next level, get a bit of pork, and just kind of slide it in. Just trying to get it close to the base as possible, but you don't want it too close because, as I mentioned before, we are going to cut a bunch off the bottom there. I think I can get another layer up top here too.
So the idea here is that we're sort of assembling it like this, and then you cut off the bottom, which detaches them all from each other.
Exactly. And in fact, what we're going to be doing is not just cutting the bottom off, but we're going to be cutting it into thirds or quarters, and then arranging those little bits in the pan in a eye-pleasing manner.
Ah.
So yeah, it's now just assembly. There we go. And then we can see the next layer down pretty easily. So we'll just lift that up, grab another slice. And this is one of the reasons why you want it as thin as possible, is that it makes the stacking a bit easier. But I think we'll be okay. If not, we'll know for sure that you need to ice your pork for a certain amount of time before assembling. Okay, and let's grab another one and just kind of ease it down into there. And then find the next leaf, lift and separate. Add your meat. Hopefully we've got enough cabbage to deal with this. Again, those thick slices may have caused some issues, but you know what? We'll deal with it as we go along. Okay, and that's one pork stack. Now, just leave that to sit there for the moment, because we're not quite done our final assembly yet. We'll put the extra leaves over here with the extra leaves, and grab another stack of cabbage.
I like what Julia Mon says. It's part cooking and part flour arranging.
Yep, the ikebana of pork. Okay. You know what? Let's make this not easy on ourselves, but let's use all the parts of the pork belly.
Yeah. Next Valentine's Day, give your Valentine something they can really use. A delicious pork belly and cabbage bouquet.
I mean, to be honest, a nabe is a pretty good romantic date night food if you want to, shake things up a little.
It's got that sort of extra kind of fancy feel to it, like it's something special.
Yeah, but it's always nice to share food directly with those closest to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, eating out of the same pot really enhances that, I think. Yeah, I could come back and do more nabes as well with different things, but this is probably the most involved preparation that I could have brought in.
So nabe is just anything that's sort of in this kind of broth form.
Exactly. Cooked in a small earthenware dish or whatever pot you've got available. Sometimes people will cook them on the stove and then move them into the earthenware pot after things have cooked down, and then just serve them on the table that way.
Right, because nabe is actually the name of the pot, right?
Exactly, yeah. Oh, okay. Each of these little bits of pork belly nestled in its bed of cabbage. I'm a little bit jealous by the pork.
You wish you had a bed of cabbage?
Yeah, just to snuggle up in.
You wish you had been sliced thinly?
The real question, of course, is you have to ask yourself, if in a relationship, are you the, not who's the big spoon, who's the small spoon, but who is the pork and who is the cabbage? I think I'm the pork. That's 2 down. No sense stopping now. Okay, I think we have exactly as much pork as we need, judging from what I'm looking at on the table and what we've got left in terms of cabbage. And in fact, we might have a bit more, but that's okay. We can work with that. But this is getting packed pretty thick, which is, I'm liking it. I did consider bringing in my Nabe don to show off as an example of what one of the clay pots look like, but you can use your Google to bring that up if you want one. And because they are earthenware, I wasn't sure if I wanted to have it rattling around in the back of my car with the rest of the cooking accessories. On the way in. Oh, I think we might have no-scoped the pork as well. Because that looks like that's about the right size of a stack for 1/4 of a portion. Okay, let's get a good thick piece there. Stick it in the back end because that's where the big thick pieces of cabbage are, and if we do it that way, they should cook up easier around the edges. One last one to go. Stick the extra cabbage over there. And grab you. All right, this one's gonna be the one where I pay the most attention to how much pork I can jam in here. Yep, I think we did it pork-wise. Yeah, let's actually slide that one down to this level.
Pork-wise. It's like being, are you streetwise?
Street smart and pork wise. Okay. We don't have many layers left. We've got a few pieces of pork left. Let's get you in there. Oh no! Did I misjudge, or do I just need to find, and well, we can find places for this pork. It's not like it needs to be all in there, but that's kinda how you do it.
Too much pork is not necessarily a big issue. Yeah.
Exactly. So, rather than moving this one around, let's just move forward with it. Oops. I seem to have misplaced a piece of pork. Okay. So, to start, we're going to take our knife and we are going to, let's flip that around for ease of sight. There we go. Cut off the bit of the end there that we don't want. You can see that's just a clean cut. I'll stick that there for now. Now comes the hard part. We're going to cut it in half once. Trying to keep things together as much as possible, and then we're going to cut it in half a second time. Again, trying to keep that stack together. Oh boy, that's a rough one, but we'll get there. And then we will add that to the pot in such a way that it should stand up and show the layers of pork and cabbage, which it does not right now, so there we go. And that one's a little bit better in terms of showing the top. These first ones are going to be pretty nasty anyway.
Could you just shift it a little bit over?
Right or left?
Right. Yes.
There we go. There we go. All right. So let's just continue with cutting these in half. Oh no. Bob's my uncle. Okay, that one's... We can salvage, we can salvage, we can salvage. Pork to the bottom and nice slice up top. Again, keep stuffing that in.
So you're layering it. Again, my misconception of it as being the sort of layering it like a casserole or something. You're actually doing it sort of end on layering.
Exactly. I don't know if that does anything in particular for the cooking, but it definitely aesthetically gives it a look to it.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, and by chopping it, like instead of having sort of large leaves, by chopping it like that, I would guess that gives more surface area for the cabbage to sort of soak up all those tasty juices.
That would be my guess, yeah. Okay, you know what I might do is actually just chop by side and keep the bottom on as long as possible. Nope, that seems like a bad idea. Okay, and then that seems better. And it starts to come together visually a little bit better once you get more of it in there. All right, let's see if that idea holds true here. And just pick that up. Stuff it in there. That's a much nicer looking cross section.
I'm seeing that like the size of your pan, your cooking vessel versus the amount of stuff you're making is pretty important.
Yes, this is what I use for my for this particular dish. This pan, because I like it because it's got the flat sides, so you can really get things in there a little bit more.
And it seems about right. Like it's one head of cabbage's worth of space.
Now we were looking at the unused leaves there I was mentioning. The idea behind that was that if we need to fill out the pot at all, you can use the remaining leaves to stuff the center. But that doesn't appear to be a problem that we're going to have today. And in fact, if anything, we're probably going to overfill this pot just a bit.
It's okay if it is pretty tightly packed.
Oh yeah, that's no problem. The cabbage itself will very quickly lose structural integrity, and
right, the whole thing is going to cook down a fair amount.
Yeah, but I think I might have to stop stuffing after this particular cabbage. We'll see. But that's starting to look closer to what it should look like. You know, if you've got all of your leaves aligned properly, and you can make this as clean and fancy as you want to.
I'm imagining the super fancy restaurant version of it where it's like a spiral going down or something.
A perfect spiral, yeah.
Yeah. Where every leaf of cabbage is precisely picked.
Perfectly added in the right space. Yeah, I think we might be stuffed full here.
Do you still have one?
An entire quarter cabbage to go.
Uh-oh.
Yep. So I think I misestimated just a bit here on that.
Be a slightly larger cabbage than your previously used.
Yeah, but let's stick what little bits of bacon we got in there back in, and I can always wrap that up and take it home with me as something to, add to the pot tomorrow. Okay, let's do a bit of a cleanup here. I'm just going to peel my gloves off because that's no longer an issue.
It's interesting, again, because of the way it's going to be cooked. You would at this point the only thing that's in there is just cabbage and the pork belly.
Yeah.
I would normally expect a bunch of seasoning to be added before it sort of gets to this point, but of course that's all the seasoning is going to be added by the broth.
Exactly. Everything is in the everything's already in the soup, as it were. Right, let's move some of these towels around here too, because we'll need to move the burner into position here in just a second. All right, so first off, let's get the burner out. And second off, let's cut up our ginger. So let's just do that right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You know what? 6 pieces, that's fine too. And we're just going to take our ginger and we're going to slot it in wherever makes sense. Kind of get it evenly spaced around the thing. Jam it in. And there we go. Okay, and now let's turn on our stove. So, we are going to add our wet team and dry team here to the mix. I think we do that just right at the top, to be honest. double check my recipe. Boop, boop, boop. Cut the cabbage. Tucked, pack the pot. Okay. Yeah, and as they point out in the recipe, if you do have extra layers, which we do have a lot of, you can add them later in the future after you've eaten some out of it, or you can do another pot or half pot later on in the week.
Right, because I mean, this is sort of traditionally, or sort of one way to do this would be, it's sort of cooking as you're eating it, right on the table, so you can sort of throw in more stuff as people get hungry.
Exactly. All right, let's get our soy sauce and sake in there. We'll do the same, just sprinkle in our bonito and salt. Add our water. Hope to heck we've got the right amount. Survey says we're in a good position here. Oh, we are not. That's a lot of water. Okay. Time to start cooking. No two ways about it. And I mean, we just need to bring it up to a medium-high heat, which is, there we go. Always forget how this thing works. There's a medium-high. And so we just need to keep this from boiling over, essentially is what needs to happen at this point. We might do some, I might add a bit more water if it starts to get low, but for now, this is where what we're working with. There's a version of this dish, isn't Japanese but Korean, where the cabbage is used instead of kimchi, and the meat is marinated in a sweet style. It's very good. I can believe that. Snout asked, missed the start. Did you do anything with the pork? Yes, we did use pork. No, we did not do anything with it. What we should have done with it is freeze it for about 15 minutes just to get it nice and firm for slicing purposes. You can also ask your butcher at your local shop to slice it for you, but I find those butchers are becoming more and more rare to find. The nice thing about an induction stovetop, as opposed to the fire-based ones, is that the heat's a little quicker, but just as responsive to dropping temperatures. Just watching this start to bubble so quickly, and it's making my heart sing. Get in there, Ginger. No peeking out. Yeah, the other thing you need to be worried about that I mostly got right is how high you want your slices to be, because you ideally don't want them sticking out of the pan. Like I said, we mostly got that right this time, but be aware. That's one of the other reasons why I didn't bring the Nabe pot to cook on. is that I haven't done this recipe in the clay pot yet, but it has a much more curved edge to itself. So I think we'd have an even harder time packing that pot than we did with this one. Oh. Let's stay away from that side of the chair.
Yeah, I don't know. There's something going on. I don't know if it's that microphone is messed up or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, try
Yeah, I
not
think
to.
it's something you're doing over there. Yeah, we might need to swap you over to
You know
a
what?
different.
That's probably, while this is heating up, let's do that.
Sure, yeah. I'm just going to mute you on the board here. And while that's happening, we can just hang out, you and me. We can't even hear the pot going. But we can see inside it. Ooh, that's looking good. Yeah, the induction cooking really heats up fast. Actually, literal mic 5. You'll turn the batteries around trick.
Don't know why I decided to choose the microphone with the most tangled and knotted cable in it, but here we are.
Hey.
Oh, I can already smell the pork starting to cook down. It's heating up in a nice way. You don't need to touch it at all. There's no stirring necessary.
Now you don't put a lid on it though, eh?
It's not mentioned in the in the recipe, but you often do cook things with a cook nabe dishes with a lid for a certain amount of time. But I think I'm going to do that once we've got the boiling up, and then we can let it. Once we bring it back down, we can let it steam for that 8 to 10 minutes. Yeah, a lid will definitely make it come up to a boil faster, but it makes it difficult to see what's going on. The other issue with packing your pan too tight makes it a little bit difficult to remove some of the foam that occurs when you're cooking out pork, but. I say that pork is the most prominent meat featured in Japanese cooking. I wouldn't say it's the most prominent, but actually this was an article that I was reading just earlier this week on Unseen Japan, is that fish consumption in Japan is down quite a bit, and that's a lot to do with with chicken, pork, and to a lesser extent beef, replacing a lot of the what you'd eat fish for, just simply because it's cheaper, and second because they're a lot easier to prepare.
Did Japan didn't have, or did Japan have like a lot of in the like beef before?
Oh yes.
Before sort of the Western influence stuff.
Oh yes, definitely. It made its way over from Asia a number of times, and was for a time banned due to the vegetarianism of those in charge. But one of my favorite jokes that I like to tell with Beej from our days studying Japanese history together in university was there was a line from a book, I believe from the, not the Showa period, but from the, from the Tokugawa, the Edo period, stating that the emperor tried beef and declared it delicious.
Ooh. The I guess certain types of certain types of protein, I guess, were favored more because of just the landscape and the certain not the same kind of wide-ranging pastures that are prominent in North America and Europe.
Yeah, that sort of land is used for farming rice.
Yeah,
which is the crop you can pay your taxes with.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, we're getting a nice little bubble going here. Just gonna push down on things with the. Ooh, there we go. The spoon. I might be able to take a little bit of that scum off the top there, and I think I'm going to take the opportunity. The fine mesh strainer.
How long is this? Oh, I see. Oh, that's a neat strainer. I haven't seen one like that.
They're very handy, especially for canning or anytime you want to strain a soup stock.
Just skimming that little bit off the top.
Yep. And it's a little easier if you've got a little bit more surface area to work with, but it cleans things up a bit, you know.
So how long approximately are you cooking this?
So once we get it up to a decent boil, it's going to take 6 to 8 minutes before it's ready to.
Not long at all.
Not long at all. Bang that out on some. Let me tell you, in addition to the lack of sink, the other fun thing about doing cooking on Tinker Tailor is how I'll end up bundling up my dirty dishes and used things just to take home to wash.
Mm.
There we go. Look at that.
I'm starting to get the smell over here. That's nice.
Yeah. And so just imagine, sitting around a kitchen table on a cold winter's day while this starts bubbling up in front of you.
Yeah. There have been a couple of attempts at sort of communal hot pot places in town here, but they never stick around for too long.
And I rarely see Japanese hot pot places. It's very often a Chinese or a Korean thing.
Yeah.
Which isn't a problem, but they are different dishes. So.
Yeah, there is definitely I remember going to one quite a few years ago, but where it was, you had this sort of pot of broth, and then they just had a plate full of all different veggies and meats and things that you could put into it and stuff. It wasn't too bad. Yeah. It was quite good. I don't think we were. It was the first time we had sort of eaten that way, so I don't know if we were doing it justice. But.
Well, that's one of the other things about hot pot dishes too is we growing up we didn't eat a lot of them because we didn't eat a lot of Asian food at home, and when we did go out for Asian food, you wanted something that was substantial and getting your money's worth, and because
Yeah.
the ingredients in these things are so often very simple. You kind of question, like, why am I paying $40 for just some cabbage, and vegetables, and a little bit of thin meat?
Yeah, right.
And the reason you're paying that is because it's delicious. All right, I think we've now reached boiling levels. So, you got boiling here, not so much there. I'm wondering why that is. If it's a but I think I want to make sure we've got good boil going across the dish. So let's take this down to medium high, or rather, sorry, medium low. So maybe 500, and let's lid it up. The lid is being the lid has now become a drop lid. It is not forming a seal.
I mean,
That's all right.
I guess it shows when the cabbage is done because it'll.
Yeah, it'll settle itself in. All right, let's set an 8-minute timer.
So you are putting the lid on now.
Yeah.
So this is.
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason for us to try to boil off anything in here. I might just let some steam escape, but lid on is probably a good place here for us. This is also one of the reasons why I have to choose my battles in terms of cooking programs on Tinker Tailors. Sometimes you just need to let the food do its thing for an extended period of time. Yeah. I can answer some questions though. Snout asks, does Victoria have a good selection of quality Asian produce? We do, in fact. Even within our Chinatown area, there are a number of independent grocers there that work off of or receive their goods from an importer that I believe is now third generation.
Oh wow.
Well, not just importing, but bringing foods over from the mainland for distribution here in Chinatown and through the restaurants. But we also have a couple of very good locally owned grocery chains, Fairways, other chains are available, that have a very good Asian selection. Fujiya is one of our Japanese grocery stores that has a fantastic selection and gets in a lot of things that you won't find anywhere else. And finally, we eventually get an H-Mart at some point. Our old Toys R Us will emerge from its chrysalis and we'll have access to some cheap Korean goods. Mostly I'm looking forward to that because I want to get more thinly sliced and thinly shaved meats for either for shabu shabu or for simply just grilling on a Korean barbecue at the table.
Yeah, the as you might guess from just where we are, Victoria and Vancouver have a very, very large Asian communities, and so we are blessed with much.
A pretty decent selection of.
Yeah, pretty good. I mean, I believe the Vancouver Chinatown is one of the oldest Chinatowns in North America.
I seem to remember that being talked about for Victoria's Chinatown as well.
Oh, maybe.
If not one of the oldest, possibly the oldest.
Maybe everybody says their Chinatown is the oldest Chinatown. I don't know.
Yeah, it's the oldest Chinatown in the region. What, you gonna bring in a new Chinatown with that accent? Ooh, smell is increasing. And let's take a peek. Yeah, let's bring that down a bit more. It's
just want to simmer, right?
yeah. But that's looking very good, and ooh, smelling very good. I want to point out, especially in this area here, you can see the broth is taking up the color of the soy sauce and is pulling out the. You can see the little globules of. Well, maybe you can't, but there are little globules of fat starting to form amongst the pork and mingle with the cabbage. So we're in for a good time.
My innate reaction is that they should be stirred, just because it's like, oh, it's a pot of stuff, I should stir it. But that would be a bad idea in this case.
Yeah, it would ruin the beauty of the
theoretically.
layout.
It wouldn't really affect the content too much. It would just.
In fact, it'll very quickly come apart in your own bowl, mouth, and beyond.
I guess it's, in a lot of ways, it's sort of like a cabbage and pork belly stew. In some ways, yeah.
Yeah, a stew with a clear broth, which is strange to people who would think a stew can only be dark, opaque brown. But
I want my stew opaque. I have very strong opinions about the refractive index of my stew.
Don't eat till you can't see the bottom. Oh, okay, Wedge makes an interesting point. If the H Mart opens there, and they have a warmer station with little sweet potatoes and paper bags, absolutely grab one of them and eat in the parking lot, highly recommend. If they're selling yakiimo, the grilled or warmed sweet potatoes in bags, that is a Japanese staple, and one of the things I miss the most about living in small town Japan.
Ooh.
Which was when the sweet potato truck would make its rounds through the neighborhoods, playing a song over its loudspeaker of Yakiimo, Yakiimo.
That's the like the ice cream, and everyone runs out and gets sweet potatoes.
Yeah, get sweet potatoes that have been grilled over coal or charcoal in the back of this K truck.
Wow.
Actively open, well, not open fire, but active fire going on in the back of this truck, playing music. You come out, stop him, give him a couple coins, and he'll give you a delicious sweet potato.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Now, it makes me kind of sad that, well, not sad, but I'm, as somebody who lives in sort of the downtown area of Victoria, and I don't drive and stuff. It's a little bit tricky to get out to. This is about by like Mayfair, right?
Where the
Toys where the Toys
R
Us is. Yeah. It's a shame, but it's nice to have it around anyway.
Paul, I feel for you completely. Frankly, I would just really enjoy having a little truck that came around selling sweet potatoes we could hear from our buildings in downtown.
Oh.
Good, I did not activate the timer.
I'm definitely pro food truck in general.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there was a push maybe about 4 or 5 years ago in Victoria to like get food truck going.
Yeah.
And then that has kind of dropped off. There's a couple of quite good food trucks near us, but it turns out that like the property especially in sort of the downtown area, real estate is so expensive that it doesn't really make sense to have a truck there instead of an actual restaurant.
And oftentimes our food trucks are generally seen in one location and one location only.
Yeah. I mean, they do sometimes, they'll show up at like beer fest or other sort of events and things, but
which is what they're specifically good for. Not just a beer fest, but for event fooding.
But like, there's behind the museum, there's like a sort of little courtyard, and
Yes.
there's sort of three or four or five food trucks that kind of hang out in there. But it's a little like there's some tasty. I've had some tasty things there, but it's not. You're not gonna get a lot of foot traffic there. I feel like they're not in a good spot.
Yeah, there's a lot of signs pointing to the back there. Ironically, that's my old office used to overlook that food truck area. Don't be creepy. So it's kind of, well, it wasn't good for the waistline when I could go down and get freshly made like donut holes dusted with cinnamon and sugar anytime I wanted. All right, I think we are now at edible point. I'm going to do a quick test here myself, and then if I declare if this emperor declares it delicious, then we'll bring some into the gondola for you to give it a try. So I'm just going to grab a small piece. Well, not a small piece. I'm going to grab a big hunk of cabbage and a big hunk of meat here, and see if we're. Ooh, that pork is already falling apart. Good sign. Come on.
Now, is this served, like, with tongs like this, or with a ladle, or how is this normally? Like, you sort of pick the stuff out of the broth?
Yeah, the correct thing to do is to literally just, grab chopsticks and scoop yourself into your own bowl, and then once you've got it in your bowl, you'll have your ponzu on the side. Reminder, delicious side for it, nice for dipping. Make sure if you're going to make it yourself, make it at least a couple days in advance.
Oh, so the ponzu didn't actually go in the pot.
No, it does not. It goes to the side.
The ponzu is the dip.
Yep. So I'm just going to grab a big old hunk here. Let's give it a little dip. Hopefully it's cool enough for me to bite into. So it's a little bit thicker. Because I cut things a little bit thicker, it's a little bit less tender than it, not less tender, but it's a little more toothy and a little chewier. And that, I think, actually helps bring out the flavor of the pork a bit more than it otherwise would. So let me get you a nice big old thick stack here, Paul, and then let's
I'm excited.
compare some tasting notes.
So now, this isn't something where you would have you would like pour the broth into the bowl as well. Like a sort of a ramen or something.
You can, and in fact, I'll give you a little bit of broth there so that you've got the option to try that out. But I just want to make sure you've got a good cross section of pork and cabbage there. Just add a little. Oh, the broth is just exploding with ginger aroma right now. One sec. All right, here you are. And there's your ponzu and your chopsticks.
Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome.
See if I can do this without pouring stuff all over my keyboard.
Always the trick, isn't it? All right, I'm gonna have another small helping here myself because gotta have the proper reactions on air. Let's just have a look at that. That's a beautiful cross section right there. Into the bowl. Yeah, grab just a bit more. And I'll give myself some broth there too. It is one of the most simple of broths. You've got your salt, soy sauce, dashi, ginger, cabbage, pork, and that's everything to it. Right. don't think there is anyone else in the moon base at the moment, unfortunately. Beej did come by to say goodbye earlier, so.
It has a more delicate flavor than I was expecting in some ways. Like I said, a lot of my experience with pork belly is like, sweet and sour pork belly, which is, quite excessive.
Yeah, really assaulting the, well, not assaulting, but
It's got, chili and all sorts of tasty stuff in it. But
intense flavor.
yeah, this is very nice, yeah. And especially with the
ponzu?
Ponzu, yeah.
Yeah. It's that, it's delicate, but still unctuous. It's got a lot of rendered out pork fat in here. But then the ponzu cuts through in such a...
Yeah, the sort of sourness of the ponzu is really great.
So I think the other thing I'm going to do with this when I eventually sit down for a meal is to pair this with a little bit of white rice on the side. And I think that'll be a very nice thing. That's one thing I haven't done yet. To get the patented everything bite, where you get both pork and cabbage at once. Let's see how that goes.
It's amazing. It's it's fairly dark here in the crystal gondola, and so I don't want to have too much light interference. And it's amazing that it is actually sometimes difficult to tell whether it's extremely tender pork belly or tender cabbage that I'm eating.
Yeah, I think
the cabbage has absorbed so much of the flavors.
a lot of people talk about how pork is a sweet meat, and I think this is one of those dishes that really accentuates the sweetness of pork belly as a flavor. And you'd think, like, where does this flavor come from? And it can't come from anywhere else but the pork. We haven't added any sugar to this. We haven't added any other sweeteners. It's just simple cabbage, pork, and fish.
Yeah, I mean the fish sauce does definitely have a sweet, or not fish sauce, but the
broth.
The fish broth does definitely have a sweetness to it. Like I know in like Thai cooking, you use a lot of fish. In that case, it is fish sauce and stuff, and which just it does add a lot of this sort of sweetness to the to a curry or something.
Fish sauce is one of those things that lives on my countertop whenever I'm making stew. It's such a good way of adding salt, but also adding additional flavor, specifically umami, to everything. It's really good, and that's why I think this dish works as well. When I'm making Western stews, I'll often add a number of packages of gelatin powder to it, again to thicken up the broth. Whereas this, you get the thickening naturally from just having that little bit of oil and fat leaking out of the pork as it cooks down into incredibly tender and chewy ways. Oh, all right. Let's finish up what I've got here. Yeah, I was worried about the size of the pork that I was cutting up, and there was no reason for me to be worried at all.
You're worried it was too big?
Yeah, I was worried it was going to be too big and it wouldn't cook down enough to be tender or edible. It would just end up being a gristly mess. And no, it works perfectly. 8 minutes on a countertop once you get to a boil. It's hard to believe that's all it takes. All right.
I could certainly imagine this in the sort of hot pot or communal, kind of situation where you're putting other things into this broth other than just the cabbage and the pork. Once you got this really nice broth going, you could do all sorts of interesting stuff with it, I guess.
Well, one of my favorite things to do with miso soup these days is just dump it into my rice like an old man. Because that's a thing old men do in Japan, or at least it's known to be an old man thing.
Really?
It tastes delicious, and I bet that the rice would probably go pretty nicely with this too. If not that, udon noodles. Just dumping a pack of frozen noodles into there and letting it cook up would just be.
I mean, I know the sort of steak sauce or the kind of rice sauce that is off.
Yeah.
Yep. Is often sort of either sesame sauce or a miso based sauce. So it makes sense that it would be delicious on rice.
But yeah, success. I'm happy with how things turned out tonight, I think is the best way of putting it. And I'm also happy that you were all here to watch and witness it as well. It's been an absolute pleasure cooking for you and not letting you eat any of the food. But unfortunately, I think this is going to be the end of this Tinker Tailor Salter Fry. So once again, if you like what you see, go check out patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. That's the site that we like to use for recurring payments, recurring assistance, patronage, one might even say. Patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. Don't forget our YouTube channels, Loading Ready Run, LRRVG, where you can check out the latest episode of Checkpoint, LRRMTG for our Magic the Gathering, and of course, Loading Ready Live for all of the other streams we do over at twitch.tv/loadingreadyrun. So for myself and for Paul, and for everyone here at the show, thanks so much for watching, and we will see you in a fortnight. Never in fortnight, ever forward, learning out of spite. Good night.